Welcome all to today's reading from Bhagavad-Gita as it is by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim. Yat kripatamam vande Shri Guru Dinatarinam Paramanandamadavam Shri Chaitanyeshwaram. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubheva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. So we are on the introduction of Bhagavad Gita as it is. Just what is Bhagavad Gita? The purpose of Bhagavad Gita is to deliver mankind from the nations of material existence. Every man is in difficulty in so many ways, as Arjun also was in difficulty in having to fight the battle of Kurukshetra. Arjun surrendered unto Shri Krishna, and consequently this Bhagavad Gita was spoken. Not only Arjun, but every one of us is full of anxieties because of this material existence. Our very existence is in the atmosphere of non-existence. Actually, we are not meant to be threatened by non-existence. Our existence is eternal, but somehow or other we are put into asat. Asat refers to that which does not exist. Out of so many human beings who are suffering, there are few who are actually inquiring about their position, as to what they are, why they are put into this awkward position, and so on. Unless one is awakened to this position of questioning his suffering, unless he realizes that he doesn't want suffering, but rather wants to make a solution to all suffering, then one is not to be considered a perfect human being. Humanity begins when this sort of inquiry is awakened in one's mind. In Brahma Sutra, this inquiry is called Brahma Jigyasa, Atito Brahma Jigyasa. Every activity of the human being is to be considered a failure unless he inquires about the nature of the Absolute. Therefore, those who begin to question why they are suffering or where they came from and where they shall go after death are proper students for understanding Bhagavad Gita. The sincere student should also have a firm respect for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such a student was Arjun. Lord Krishna descends specifically to re-establish the real purpose of life when man forgets that purpose. Even then, out of many human beings who awaken, there may be one who actually enters the spirit of understanding his position, and for him this Bhagavad Gita is spoken. Actually, we are all swallowed by the tigress of nations. But the Lord is very merciful upon living entities, especially human beings. To this end, he spoke the Bhagavad Gita, making his friend Arjun his student. Being an associate of Lord Krishna, Arjun was above all ignorance. But Arjun was put into ignorance on the battlefield of Kurukshetra just to question Lord Krishna about the problems of life, so that the Lord could explain them for the benefit of future generations of human beings and chalk out the plan of life. The man could act accordingly and perfect the mission of human life. The subject of Bhagavad Gita entails the comprehension of 5 basic truths. First of all, the science of God is explained, and then the constitutional position of the living entities, jivas. There is Ishwar, which means the controller, and there are jivas, the living entities which are controlled. If a living entity says that he is not controlled, but that he is free, then he is insane. The living being is controlled in every respect, at least in his conditioned life. So in the Bhagavad Gita, the subject matter deals with the Ishwar, the supreme controller, and the jivas, the controlled living entities, Prakriti or the material nature, and time, the duration of existence of the whole universe or the manifestation of the material nature, and karma, which is the activity, are also discussed. The cosmic manifestation is full of different activities. All living entities are engaged in different activities. From Bhagavad Gita, we must learn that God is what the living entities are, what Prakriti is, what the cosmic manifestation is, how it is controlled by time, and what the activities of the living entities are. Out of these 5 basic subject matters in Bhagavad Gita, it is established that the Supreme Lord, or Krishna, or Brahman, or the Supreme Controller, or Paramatma, you may use whatever name you like, is the greatest of all. The living beings are in quality like the Supreme Controller. For instance, the Lord has control over the universal affairs of material nature, as will be explained in the later chapters of Bhagavad Gita. Material nature is not independent. She is acting under the directions of the Supreme Lord. As Lord Krishna says, Maya Dhyakshena Prakriti Shuyate Sa Characharam. This material nature is working under my direction. When we see wonderful things happening in the cosmic nature, we should know that behind this cosmic manifestation there is a controller. Nothing could be manifested without being controlled. It is childish not to consider the controller. For instance, a child may think that an automobile is quite wonderful to be able to run without a horse or other animal pulling it, but sane man knows the nature of the automobile's engineering arrangement. He always knows that behind the machinery there is a man, a driver. Similarly, Supreme Lord is the driver under whose direction everything is working. Now, the jivas or the living entities have been accepted by the Lord, as we will note in the later chapters, as his parts and parcels. A particle of gold is also gold, a drop of water from the ocean is also salty, and similarly, we the living entities, being part and parcel of the Supreme Controller Ishwar or Bhagwan or Lord Krishna, have all the qualities of the Supreme Lord in minute quantity because we are minute Ishwaras or subordinate Ishwaras. We are trying to control nature as presently we are trying to control the space or the planets, and this tendency to control is there because it is in Krishna. And although we have tendency to lord it over material nature, we should know that we are not the Supreme Controller. This is explained in Bhagavad-Gita. So, what is material nature? This is also explained in Gita as inferior Prakriti or inferior nature. The living entity is explained as a superior Prakriti. Prakriti is always under control, whether inferior or superior. Prakriti is female and she is controlled by Lord just as the activities of a wife are controlled by the husband. Prakriti is always subordinate, predominated by the Lord, who is the predominator. The living entities and the material nature are both predominated, controlled by the Supreme Lord. According to the Gita, the living entities, although parts and parcels of Supreme Lord, are to be considered Prakriti. This is clearly mentioned in the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Aparayam itastva anyam prakritim vidhi me param. This material nature is my inferior Prakriti, but beyond this another Prakriti, Jiva Bhutam, the living entity. Material nature itself is constituted by 3 qualities: the mode of goodness, the mode of passion, and the mode of ignorance. Above these modes there is eternal time, and by a combination of these modes of nature and under the control of purview of eternal time, there are activities which are called karma. These activities are being carried out from time immemorial, and we are suffering or enjoying the fruits of our activities. For instance, suppose I am a businessman and I have worked very hard with intelligence and I have amassed a great bank balance. Then I am an enjoyer. But then I say I have lost all my money in business, then I am a sufferer. Similarly, in every field of life, we enjoy the results of our work or we suffer the results. This is called karma. Ishwar, the Supreme Lord, Jiva, the living entity, Prakriti, the material nature, and Kala eternal time, and karma activity are all explained in the Bhagavad-Gita. Out of these five, Lord, the living entities, material nature, and time are eternal. I will repeat: Lord, living entities, material nature, and time are eternal. The manifestation of Prakriti may be temporary, but it is not false. Some philosophers say that the manifestation of material energy is false, but according to philosophy of Bhagavad Gita or according to the philosophy of Vaishnavas, this is not so. The manifestation of the world is not accepted as false. It is accepted as real, but temporary. It is likened unto a cloud which moves across the sky, or the coming of the rainy season which nourishes the grains. As soon as the rainy season is over, and as soon as the clouds go away, all the crops which were nourished by the rain dry up. Similarly, the material manifestation takes place at a certain interval, say for a while, and then disappears. Such are the workings of Prakriti. But this cycle is working eternally. Therefore, Prakriti is eternal, it is not false. Lord refers to this as my Prakriti. The material nature is the separated energy of the Supreme Lord, and similarly, the living entities are also the energy of the Supreme Lord. Although they are not separated but eternally related, so the Lord, the living entity, material nature, and the time are all interrelated and are all eternal. However, the other item, karma, is not eternal. The effects of karma may be old indeed. We are suffering or enjoying the results of our activities from time immemorial, but we can change the results of our karma or our activity, and this change depends on the perception of our knowledge. We are engaged in various activities. Undoubtedly, we do not know what sort of activities we should adopt to gain relief from the actions and reactions of all these activities. But this is also explained in the Bhagavad-Gita. The position of the Ishwar, the Supreme Lord, is that of supreme consciousness. The jivas, or the living entities, being parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, are also conscious. Both the living entity and material nature are explained as Prakriti, the energy of the Supreme Lord, but one of the two, the jiva, is conscious. The other, Prakriti, is not conscious. That is the difference. Therefore, jiva, Prakriti, is called superior because the jiva has consciousness which is similar to the Lord's. The Lord is supreme consciousness. However, one should not claim that the jiva, the living entity, is also supreme conscious. The living being cannot be supremely conscious at any stage of his perfection, and the theory that he can be so is a misleading theory. Conscious he may be, but he is not perfectly or supremely conscious. The distinction between the Jiva and Ishvara will be explained in the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. The Lord is Kshetrajana, that is the conscious, as is the living being, but the living being is conscious of his particular body only, whereas Lord is conscious of all bodies because he lives in the heart of each and every living being. He is conscious of the psychic movements of the particular jivas. We should not forget this. It is also explained that Paramatma, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is living in everyone's heart as Ishwar, as the controller, and that he is giving directions for the living entity to act as he desires. The living entity forgets what to do. First of all, he makes determination to act in a certain way, and then he is entangled in the actions and reactions of his own karma. After giving up one body, he enters another body as we put on and take off clothes. As thus the soul migrates, he suffers the actions and reactions of his past activities. These activities can be changed when the living being is in the mode of goodness, insanity, and understands what sort of activities he should adopt. If he does so, then all the actions and reactions of his past activity can be changed. Consequently, karma is not eternal. Therefore, we state that the 5 items, Ishwar, Jeev, Prakriti, time and karma, 4 are eternal, whereas karma is not eternal. So this is what is discussed in throughout the Bhagavad Gita, the 5 topics, which are Ishwar, Jiva, Prakriti, time and karma. The first 4, they are eternal, whereas karma, it is not eternal. It finishes when the life finishes. So our soul, super soul, or Bhagwan we call him when it is in the bigger form, and the material nature around us and time, they are eternal, they never end, they're continuous. And our Atma is also continuous, but because we come into the contact with the 3 modes of material nature, we get bewildered, we start thinking, we all panic that everything will end when our life ends. So Bhagwan is telling us again and again that we continue to live on because we are part and parcel of him. Our Atma is part of the Paramatma, so we are also eternal like Paramatma. We only change our dresses, that is our bodies, but because of the material nature and the modes of material nature, we are always anxious. Nobody can say that they are not anxious. Everybody lives their life in anxiousness. So we try to understand more and more about these 5 topics, and if we keep ourselves as students of this Bhagavad Gita, we shall be able to live better than many of other human beings around us, or better than how we used to be before we understood the journey of our life and the permanent association of Bhagwan, which is always with us. So I will continue this introduction tomorrow, and I wish you all a very blissful day ahead. Thank you both, Narayan Keshav Prabhu and Shamita, for joining me. Hare Krishna.